We've seen sunburst dials before, but not like this. This dial takes things to new depths, literally. With Phoibos handling the manufacturing and Island Watch the customer service, what are the odds that this watch is completely dialed in? This watch is available at Island Watch for $360 US, and that is the only place you're going to find this watch, because the purple dial as well as the aqua colored dial are exclusive to Island Watch. That's why you notice on the dial it says Islander, and on the top crown we have the Islander logo. Now both of these are limited to 100 pieces each. I'll leave a link in the description of this video in case you're interested in checking it out for yourself. I want to kick off this 2-week review with a huge thank you to Mark at Island Watch. You are not going to freaking believe this, but this is Mark's personal watch. I am beyond honored that he entrusted me with it. Now, he has no idea that I'm going to say this, but Mark is one of the nicest people in the business, and in my opinion, one of the best places you could possibly buy a watch from. But don't take my word for it. Go online, look at other people's reviews, and go onto the online forums and ask. I've never met anybody who had one negative thing to say about buying a watch from Mark. Now, with that said, let's get on with this review. Of course, the case is 316L stainless steel. We have a diameter of 41 millimeters, a lug-to-lug distance of 47 millimeters, and an overall thickness of just over 14 millimeters. Now for reference, here it is on my 7-inch wrist. Initially, I thought 14 millimeters may be a bit on the thick side, but it sits down really well and it doesn't feel thick at all in actual use. Also for reference, I removed 4 of the supplied links to fit my 7-inch wrist. Okay, so here we are on day 1, and the first thing that pops out, of course, is that dial. I have never seen one quite like this. This is no ordinary sunburst. It looks like it's almost etched in. So I asked Ryan, and he said that the sunburst pattern on this dial is molded. So apparently that is why it feels so prominent and has almost a textural look to it. All I know is that when the light hits that pattern, it is definitely eye-catching. The finishing overall is nicely done, but it's really the small details that makes this feel exceptional. The way the lugs meet up the bracelet, not only does it look impossibly close, but I don't feel any difference in height. It feels completely flush. Then there's the mix of polish and brushing. There's a high polish on the chamfered edge, which, we see a lot of on watches, but we also find it on the ends of the crowns and on the smallest selection of the bracelet. Now, in addition, there's also this coin edge treatment, which sits just on top of the case. And while that coin edge is different than the knurling pattern on the crowns, it feels like they go together. All of this gives the watch just the right amount of bling, while respecting the fact that this is a tool watch. Now, my only criticism here would be that the bottom edge of the case, while it's not sharp, it's also not quite as refined as the rest of the case. For finishing on this watch, I would score it as a plus. So something interesting occurred to me today. This purple watch looks purple, and here's what I mean by that. Oftentimes, when you have a colored dial, for instance, blue or green, whenever that watch is in a dim environment, it can actually look black, or at the very least, it just doesn't look dynamic anymore. This watch, however, doesn't seem to do that. Now, in part because they did not go with a dark purple color, but I suspect it's also due to the fact that that sunburst pattern is molded, that whatever light is available is catching those edges, helping to keep this dial its purple color and to look stunning, even in a dim environment. Now, the metal bracelet that comes with this watch is 20 millimeters wide at the lugs and tapers down to 18 millimeters at the sign clasp. There are solid links as well as solid end links, and the bracelet is held together with screw pins. It has a double push button release and a milled scissor section. There are 3 micro adjustments, and while more would have been nice, I personally find 3 to be completely acceptable. It is what I need to get a good fit. As I mentioned before, I removed 4 of the supply links for my 7-inch wrist. The bracelet proved to be comfortable on a daily basis. It never once felt uncomfortable. There are no sharp edges on the bracelet or anywhere on the clasp itself. For the metal bracelet that comes with this watch, I would score it as a plus. I think it looks great. I love the subtle use of high polish. The micro adjustments makes it easy to get a good fit. And the combination of the milled scissor section, the screw pins, and the solid end links make the bracelet on this affordable watch feel exceptional. On the back side of the watch, we have a screw down case back with text that includes automatic, sapphire crystal, 660 feet. And here is how you know that this is Mark's watch, because to look closely, this is not number 1 out of 100. This is number 000. I did not even know they made a number 0. Also on the case back, we have the Phoibos logo in the center with a high polished finish and what appears to be a sandblasted treatment surrounding it. Inside that case, we have the Seiko NH35 automatic movement. That has 24 joules, beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, has a power reserve of 41 hours, it does hack, and it does hand wind. It also has an accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds per day. The NH35 is one of the most trusted and reliable movements out there for affordable watches. And to be honest with you guys, if this watch was over $400, closer to $500, I would think that it should have been upgraded to something like the Miyota 9000 series. But at $360 US, the NH35 is a solid choice. So I'm going to rate the movement as a plus. So I'm doing my standard testing, and as part of that, I'm testing to see how accurate the movement is. Well, I did that, and in hindsight, I don't know why. This should have been obvious, but the watch is less than 1 second off per day. It's actually like half a second, really, which sounds incredible, and it's actually to the point that it's hard to believe. But then I realized why. Of course, it is dead on. This is Mark's personal watch, and I'm willing to bet that he regulated this himself. Moving on to the face of the watch. Now, obviously, the star of the show here is that purple sunburst, which has been molded into the dial. On a side note, the colors that are exclusive to Long Island were actually chosen by Mark. Now, on top of the dial, we have applied white indices, which are outlined in black, giving them both a high amount of contrast and a nice sense of depth. At the 6 o'clock, we have a rectangle date window, which smartly mimics the indices at the top of the dial. I think there's a tendency to always want the date window to be the same color as on the dial itself. But in everyday testing, I found this white date window feels integrated with the dial, and more specifically with the indices. And that, of course, is the entire point of having a color matching date window. But here you also get the added benefit that that white date window also makes it extremely legible. In fact, this is one of the most legible date windows on a watch I have ever worn. Both the crowns are screw-down crowns. The bottom crown controls the hands and the date function, while the top crown controls the inner rotating bezel. Give me an inner rotating bezel any day of the week. They are just fun. And this one is no exception. I love the fact they did not use the common hash marks in between the numbers, but instead used circles, and 2 different sizes at that. The largest circle appears to be the same size as found on the running second hand. And if you count the raised indices on the dial, there are actually 3 different sizes of circles here. Like I said, just plain fun. On top of the watch face, we have a domed sapphire crystal with inner AR coating. Now, in my everyday use, I had absolutely no issues with reflections. I think this is obvious, but I'm going to rate the face of this watch as a plus. The applied indices, the inner rotating bezel, even the treatment of that date window. I just think this is a smart looking watch. The hands, indices, and parts of the inner rotating bezel all have BG W9 Super Luminova applied. Now obviously the hands and indices have more surface area for the lume to be applied than the markers on the bezel, so they of course appear brighter longer. With that said, this watch did pass my everyday lume test for over 2 weeks. Now the way that I test lume is to wear the watch, get an average amount of light exposed to it, set it alongside my bedside table at night, and see if I can tell the time at 4 in the morning when my eyes are fully dilated. And this watch passed my 4 a.m. lume test every day. For the lume on this watch, I'm going to score it as a plus. Now my lume test is very much pass or fail. Does it do its job of letting me know how much longer I can sleep in? And this watch passed my test. So after wearing this watch for a couple weeks, my final score here is 5 out of 5. Now that is the highest I've ever scored a watch. Okay, granted this is only the 4th video which I've incorporated a scoring system. And I'll admit that for a moment I thought about lowering the score on the movement, just so that this review would feel more balanced. But then I thought, why? This is how I honestly feel about this watch after testing it for 2 weeks. Now this is my personal opinion on this watch, but with that said, I'll add, buy whatever it is that you love, because this is your watch collection, and in the end, your opinion is the only one that matters. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I'll see you next time.